Gyro was an ugly, worthless loser who lost his wife Toka to a bunch of monsters. One day he awakened a godlike power that made him become the strongest. One night, he sits on a ship while drowning his sorrows in wine when suddenly, a young girl named Kumi climbs onto the ship. She shakes herself dry and greets Gyro before leaping to another ship and running off. Gyro pays no mind to her. The next morning, Gyro walks through the market, notices a long line of hunters. After giving his name, Gyro selects a spear. But he's approached by another guy named Ahim telling him to not panic when things get tough. Another man, a beast man, joins the conversation, expressing confidence that they'll be okay as long as they don't get sent in the front lines as fodder characters. The giant beast they're up against is a giant warthog that uses its tusks to drill into mountains, extracting ores to fuel itself. It releases steam from holes in its body during this process. The men watch from behind a rock as the beast works. The leader declares it's a big one and asks if everyone's ready to die, to which they all agree. The operation begins as one man sounds a gong to attract the beast towards the wall. But there's a problem because the beast is moving closer to the wall as planned, but the men on the wall can't attack it because Ahim and two other hunters are being chased by the giant beast. The hunters complain that Ahim messed up, and the guards say they won't be able to shoot arrows even if the beast gets close enough. The giant beast catches up to Ahim and throws him into the wall, knocking him out. It's about to finish Ahim off with its horn drill, but Gyro breaks the rule of physics and runs down the wall with his spear and throws it at the beast. The beast knocks the spear away with its horn, but this gives Gyro enough time to grab Ahim and pull him away. The soldier orders the archers to get ready to attack. Hyro carries Ahim and, using a rope pulley system, manages to move up the wall. With the coast clear, the archers shoot their arrows at the giant beast, hitting it and causing it to explode. The beast collapses and the hunters rush to Gyro and Ahim, asking if Ahim is okay. Gyro reassures them that Ahim's leg is injured, but he'll be alright. Later, Gyro is at a bar when a noble named Mizami approaches him. Mizami comments on the drunken hunters, and Gyro asks why an elite from the Empire is interested in him. Mizami explains that Gyro left a strong impression, showing him a paladin orb. Gyro wants him to get to the point, so Mizami reveals that the giant beasts aren't humanity's enemies, but a war is coming that will split ours into two factions. So basically, it's a civil war. He believes they'll need fighters like Gyro. Gyro dismisses him, saying he's got the wrong guy. That night, while resting, Gyro feels an earthquake and sees his spear glowing. He rushes out and spots Kumi at the dock, shining. This reminds him of Toka. Feeling guilty, Gyro knows he has to do something. Suddenly, a giant beast appears, crushing the wall with its hands and entering the city. People start running for their lives, except these two who can't. Meanwhile, the city guards chase Kumi to capture her. They shoot arrows at her, but Gyro steps in, swatting the arrows away. He leaps towards Kumi, catching her as they both fall into the sea. As they sink down, she pushes him away, but he pulls her back and stretches out his arm. His spear from his ship floats up, and then he surprises Kumi by kissing her forehead. The two suddenly find themselves in an empty void. Gyro introduces himself as Gyro, and Kumi says her name is 22. Gyro asks why a cleric like her is with a paladin escort, but she's too shy to explain. Gyro decides they'll talk about it later because stopping the giant beast is their priority. His spear finally flies towards him, and he catches it, starting to recite a chant. This chant starts transforming Kumi's body. She splits into Blender 3D particles, while Gyro splits in half, allowing Kumi's particles to enter him. This completes the contract, and they become one. Gyro's hair glows, and he's transported back to the city. He tells Kumi they have to drive the giant beast out of the city, but Kumi is confused and asks what's happening to her. Gyro, frustrated, asks if she really doesn't know, and Kumi admits it's her first time being inside someone older. Gyro tells her to stay quiet for now and charges at the giant beast, hitting it twice and causing it to fall out of the city. The people watch confused as they see a light battling the giant beast. Gyro keeps trying to pierce the beast's tough skin with his spear. The beast grabs Gyro from its back, stopping his attack. Then its green eyes turn red, and it throws Gyro into a wall before advancing towards the city. Kumi asks if Gyro is okay, but he tells her to stop yapping because he can't concentrate, and blames his condition on too much drinking. Gyro gets up and uses his spear to cut off the giant beast's arm, slowing it down. He wonders if the beast has any weaknesses. Kumi suggests targeting its eyes because it's glowing red, just like Monster Hunter. The giant beast tries to grab Gyro, but he avoids it. He uses the beast's arms to run towards its eyes and stabs them. He comments that clerics like Kumi always have a sixth sense about giant beasts. Gyro drives the spear deep into the giant beast's eyes, causing a bright light to burst forth and pierce through the beast. The beast's red eyes dim and shut, and it falls to the ground. Gyro approaches the beast, and Kumi emerges from him. She admires the fallen beast, calling it stunning. But Gyro gets carted from exhaustion. She freaks out and tells him she'll buy a phoenix down. Suddenly, the girl shows up. Kumi calls her Maya, and Maya tells her she knows a place where they can get treatment for the injured. While unconscious, Gyro dreams about the moment he fumbled Toka. Literally, Gyro wakes up from the dream, rising so fast that he hits his head on the ceiling. He turns to Kumi and asks if she really doesn't know anything about clerics. She admits she only knows they have incredible power. Gyro explains further, saying the power of a cleric is formidable but also dangerous. They can lose control and release a miasma that could destroy everything around them. That's where the paladins come in. They act as vessels to channel and control a cleric's power. He expresses his frustration that paladins are now just used for hunting giant beasts. He then asks why the Empire is chasing her, but she says it's spoiler alert and would only reveal it if you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Maya adds that he formed a contract with her, but Gyro defends that they would have been screwed if he didn't and tells them to go find another paladin if they won't take the matter seriously. He leaves, telling Kumi to escape while she still can. He goes to his ship and starts cleaning it, then returns to bed after he's done. He mentions Toka's name and looks around, realizing his spear is missing. He searches for it, but it's not in the room. He goes outside to try to call it by stretching his hands, but it doesn't fly to him. He wonders if the spear is stuck in a tree. As he keeps trying to pull it towards himself, he notices the spear is inside a ship and realizes that Kumi was captured. The capturers are on alert as the captain orders them to keep a watchful eye on Kumi and Maya, who he refers to as the prototype and the chapeau. Gyro hides in the water as he observes the ship, noticing it's loaded with supplies and ready for departure. Gyro sneaks in and performs a solid snake, demanding to know where the girls are. The soldier reveals they're in room 5 on the 2nd floor, and Gyro knocks him out. He manages to get to the room where he finds the girls and his spear strapped to Maya. Kumi is thrilled to see him, saying she knew he'd come for them because he likes little girls. Maya comments that he's come to take his lovely wife back, but Gyro ignores them and grabs his spear, unstrapping it from Maya. He tells her she pulled a fast one on him by taking his spear away. He leaves without another word, ignoring Kumi's question if he's okay. Maya thinks Gyro is heartless, and Kumi, feeling sad, says Gyro seemed upset. They hear men grunting and falling, and Gyro shouts for them to hurry up. He did come to save them after all. They step out to see soldiers sprawled across the hallway. Gyro tells them they're going to sneak, and they should follow him. But escape isn't easy since their stealth level is too low. Gyro starts fending off the soldiers, but they're too many. It turns out the ship belongs to Mizami. They're surrounded, so Gyro stretches out his big spear to the girls, telling them to grab it tightly. They do, and the spear glows. Gyro jumps into the air with the girls holding on, then dives into the sea. The captain orders the soldiers to launch the ship and follow them. Gyro uses the spear to subject the girls to hundreds kilonewtons of water pressure, and they arrive at his ship. He then powers up his ship and prepares to set sail. Maya is amazed by the interior of the ship, but Gyro interrupts her, saying he'll buy them some time while she gets ready to launch. Maya agrees and prepares to drive the ship. Gyro and Kumi go outside to stall the enemy. He tells her they're forging again. Kumi worries and asks if it won't hurt the soldiers. Gyro reassures her, saying they're just going to make a big hole to sink the enemy's ship, so she shouldn't worry. She leans towards him, and he asks what she's doing. She says it's the kiss. He tells her he can't as the feds might cuff him, and explains that the kiss is a one-time thing, which makes her embarrassed. The enemy watches as they thought Gyro called the automaton dropships, but it was actually just Gyro himself. Gyro hell dives on their ship's edge, causing it to tilt. Then he calls in his stratagem, the shipbreaker, and a bright light shines as the spear pierces through. The group manages to extract without a fuss, but they forget their rare samples. As their ship passes through a foggy area, Kumi marvels at the view outside. Everything looks absolutely like terrible because the forests remind her of New Hampshire and everything in Britain is trash. Kumi then explains what happened to her and why Mizami is after her. She tells that 7 years ago, when they were many prototypes, each given numbers, their memories were transferred to the next prototype. Kumi recalls herself as number 11, surrounded by water, until men in supreme hoodies drained the water out of her chamber. They took her to a room where one of the men inspected her vitals and reported she was a success. However, the prototype 11 failed. Number 18 made it to the next room where she was strapped to a chair and given Xanax. She started reciting a chant, but on the second line, she began to short circuit. This caused her energy to overload, leading to an explosion and marking her as absolutely cooked. Kumi explains that every failed prototype was baked in a human oven. When she, as number 22, came out of the chamber, she collapsed to the ground coughing. The man in the suit, who ended up being her hero, asked if she was okay and encouraged her to pull through for everyone's sake. She was then taken to a room where she was injected with fentanyl multiple times. She was scared and in pain, but that didn't stop the men, including Mazami, the crackhead ringleader, from doing the experiments on her. He ordered her to recite the chant while injecting her with maximum dosage of Heinz ketchup. She said her hero returned her to her chamber and told her to hang on longer as it would soon be over. But the next thing she knew, she was asked to fight against number 23. They were both given knives to attack each other. She was still hesitant, but number 23 has British genes and immediately lunged at her without hesitation. She held her ground against number 23 and started reciting a chant, causing her to emit miasma that started eating away at number 23's hands, causing number 23 to back away upon seeing this. She was scared while number 23 was angry at her for giving her COVID too. They both faced each other, reciting the mantra while the men watched. It turns out, for them to be stable, it wasn't that they as vessels lacked output, but it's their emotions that needed to come out, specifically the thrill of murder and fear of death, which number 23 had the former while she had the latter. She didn't want to fight and desperately wanted someone to come save her. Number 23 drew near and stabbed her in the chest, but she started to glow and her miasma overflowed, decaying the knife in her chest and decaying number 23's arm. Then, number 23 was sent to Flying Mexico and is never seen again. Seeing how strong she was, Mazami decided to take her out of the facilities. They applied a shock to knock her out, causing her to stop glowing, and she collapsed to the floor. She recalls sitting in her chamber, feeling like she had nothing. Suddenly, the doors opened and her hero told her to hurry and get out. He stretched his hands to her, saying they had to run. Her hero carried her on his back and ran with her. She kept on reciting the chant, even when he told her to stop and keep quiet. He scolded her, saying that yapping too much will alert the horde of crackhead Squid Games men. She didn't understand what he meant because he speaks Vietnamese, but she understood the determination in his voice when he told her that she should keep running and it didn't matter where she went. As long as she didn't want to die, she should look for the light and keep running. So when she saw the light, she ran towards it, and it led her to a door which led to the top of a castle with water below. The men surrounded her and urged her to return to her room, but she said she just mogged everyone down. Then she jumped into the sea below. The soldiers began looking for her since then. After the story, Gyro notices it's taking them to the village of the Ryanthroats. He wonders if they'll be allowed in, but Maya assures him to leave it to her. Their ship lands and all the villagers, who are beast people, stare at them. Thankfully, the villagers welcome them warmly. While they munch on snacks, a man named Deagle, the rock crusher, approaches them. Gyro introduces himself, but Deagle laughs at Gyro's name. Deagle warns Gyro about the dangerous beasts around lately, but Gyro tells them he can take on all of them, but not in a fight. Their conversation is interrupted by a persistent boy named Melon who bows and asks to be Deagle's apprentice, but Deagle declines. However, Melon suggests learning swordsmanship instead, and Deagle agrees to teach him after finishing his current tasks. Afterwards, Maya asks Gyro if he's worried about the giant beasts, which are at a historic high this year. But Gyro tells her she should be worried about his giant beast, before wondering what he should do, as joining the fight would reveal they have a cleric. Maya comments that he's basically using Deagle as bait. Suddenly, a villager announces that a red-eyed beast has appeared. Gyro is cleaning his spear when Kumi rushes in with the news. Deagle, who's injured, is brought into the village. The village leader asks if he's okay, and he says he's fine, just a little beaten up. He spots Gyro and thinks he must look pathetic, but Gyro reassures him, telling him he should have not laughed at his name. Deagle warns them about a giant beast with red eyes, saying they don't stand a chance. He notices Melon isn't around, and the village leader worries that if Melon went into the forest. Gyro and the girls decide to enter the forest and look for Melon. Maya suggests it's time to use their powers, but Gyro disagrees, fearing it will attract unwanted attention from the Empire. Suddenly, Gyro spots Melon being chased by the giant beast. Melon tries to flee but stumbles and falls. Seeing the beast closing in, Gyro leaps to his defense, urging Melon to run to safety. However, Melon hesitates and Gyro realizes this is the feared red-eyed beast the villagers warned about. Gyro is shocked because it looks like an elephant with tentacles, because it is. The beast attacks Gyro, but he manages to dodge. The beast then attacks with its trunk, narrowly missing Gyro as he evades its strikes. Gyro quickly realizes the beast's agility, but also notices its lack of intelligence. Gyro knows things won't go smoothly with Melon around, but decides to go through with it anyway, telling Kumi to begin. She recites the chant, and the two merge into one, surprising Melon. The giant beast launches its tentacles again, but Gyro easily dodges them and pierces the beast's eyes with his spear. A bright light blinds the poor beast with the brightness of 1,000 suns. Melon is stunned to discover Gyro is a paladin. Gyro reminds him that he had instructed him to return to the village, to which Melon apologizes. Kumi defends Melon, but Gyro lets it slide, warning Melon to forget everything he saw and threatening him that he'll turn him into the first ever Beastman Big Mac if he tells everyone what he just witnessed. Melon, fearful, agrees to keep quiet. Later that night, a mysterious girl enters the village and heads straight to a bar. The villagers eye her suspiciously, sensing trouble. Gyro's group is also in the bar, as it's been a safe haven for them. Kumi approaches the mysterious girl and offers her a towel. The girl introduces herself as Romana, the 10 out of 10 herbalist hottie in town. She uses the towel to clean her case and explains it contains medicinal herbs she uses to help the injured. Kumi accompanies Romana to their table, where Romana challenges Gyro to some games, winning each one. Afterward, they share drinks and stories. Romana reveals her past, recounting how 3 years ago, in a war zone in a desert area, she served as an herbalist, treating wounded soldiers. Romana shares her story with the group, contributing absolutely nothing but a sob story. The following day, Gyro and the girls prepare to leave the village, bidding farewell to the villagers who thank them for their assistance. Maya reassures them it's no trouble, while Kumi expresses gratitude for the delicious food. As Gyro watches the girls say their goodbyes, he notices Romana holding his spear. She has decided to join the team, citing the danger of giant beasts and her need for protection. Gyro protests that he never agreed to bring her along or act as her bodyguard, but Romana insists that if he disagrees, she'll call the feds on him. Maya remarks that having a doctor like Romana around will be beneficial, and Kumi adds that it'll be good for her. Seeing no other option, Gyro reluctantly agrees, realizing the value of having this absolutely gorgeous chocolate princess in the group. They all board the ships and depart, with all the 18 villagers waving goodbye. However, they're not the only new additions to the group. Melon is also aboard the ship as they needed a dog for entertainment. Kumi explains that Deagle requested they bring Melon along. Now, Melon addresses Gyro as Master, eager to learn from him, while Romana suggests they see themselves as travel partners accompanying him. Despite feeling a bit overwhelmed, Gyro accepts their presence without complaint. As Gyro guides the ship low, he's forced to make a sudden stop to avoid hitting an old man standing in front of the ship. Melon rushes out to greet the old man, revealing him to be Zen the Frozen Winter. Everyone gathers around as Melon introduces Zen to them. Zen now goes by Zen the Decrepit, commenting on Melon's growth. The two reminisce about training sessions in Melon's village, with Zen noting Melon's persistent hastiness. Romana and Maya introduce themselves, followed by Gyro and Kumi, who is exceptionally polite. Zen inquires about their journey, and Melon confirms they're heading south. Zen warns them about entering mountaineer territory from there. Gyro and Maya express concern, but Zen assures them he's familiar with the mountaineers. Melon eagerly asks if Zen will join them, but Zen explains he can't, promising to send them a letter instead. Kumi graciously thanks him for his assistance. The group continues their journey, and Kumi gathers them to confess she thinks the appearance of the red-eyed beasts is her fault. Melon asks for clarification, and Romana wonders if it's because of Kumi's cleric powers. Kumi explains that she noticed the red-eyed beasts started showing up after she emitted the forbidden vape juice. Romana questions if Kumi might be acoustic, but Gyro suggests that Kumi unleashed a wave of miasma when she lost control of her powers, linking it to the arrival of the red-eyed beasts. However, he also considers it might be connected to the humanoid beasts from his past. Despite Gyro's reassurances, Kumi still feels guilty, but Gyro insists her powers have been under control since they left the city and no black mist has been emitted, so there must be another reason behind the red-eyed beasts. Kyumi remains unsure, but Gyro assures her he'll handle everything, reminding her he's her paladin, which absolute rizzed her up to the extreme. Melon chimes in, expressing his belief that it's not Kyumi's fault either. Maya adds that if Kyumi needs more convincing, they can track down where the red beasts are coming from. Arriving atop a mountain, Gyro and Kyumi set off, leaving Maya and Romana on standby. As they ascend, Gyro spots some people and challenges them about the red-eyed beasts. A white-haired guy named Facade responds, claiming they have no idea about the beasts, but seem to have attracted Gyro, whom he considers bad news. Shocked, Gyro recognizes Facade as one of his comrades who was present when Toka died. He asks how Facade is still alive, but Facade doesn't recognize him and tells him to leave unless he wants to die. Refusing to back down, Gyro readies his spear to face Facade. Facade's eyes turn green with anger as he realizes Gyro is a paladin. He charges at Gyro, attacking relentlessly, but Gyro defends himself without retaliating. Despite being pushed back by one of Facade's attacks, Gyro steadies himself with his spear and asks what has happened to Facade. Facade remains silent, preparing for another attack. Gyro checks if Kyumi is ready to fight, and she confirms. Gyro recites the chant and merges with Kyumi, preparing to confront Facade. Gyro charges at Facade, and their weapons clash with a loud clang. Gyro tries to push past Facade's defenses, overwhelming him and pushing him back. However, Gyro starts panting heavily, struggling to keep up. Facade prepares for another attack. Gyro asks Facade what happened to him, but Facade charges at him instead. They clash again, and the force of their weapons colliding creates a huge surge of energy around them. The blast sends both of them flying into the mountain walls. Confused, Gyro tries to understand what's happening while Facade lies unconscious. Suddenly, Gojo Satoru launches Hollow Purple at Gyro, but he deflects it with his spear. But it's not actually the well-beloved Gojo no Torso, but it's a girl in a black cloak who approaches him slowly. She removes the cloak, revealing herself, and calls Gyro a fraud, labeling him a whack job. Gyro is shocked to realize that this girl is a cleric, and to his astonishment, she looks just like Kyumi, but more evil. The cleric taunts Gyro, calling him a failed product, but she's referring to Kyumi who's inside him. She then conjures two hollow purples and throws them at Gyro, which merge into one en route. Gyro struggles to block the attack due to skill issue, but still manages to deflect it. However, he suddenly collapses, feeling his strength fading. Panicked, Kyumi starts to freak out upon seeing the other cleric. Gyro urges her to calm down, but she continues to panic, recalling her time in the facilities and the existence of other prototypes. In a desperate move, Kyumi detaches from Gyro and immediately stands in front of him as the other cleric approaches. Surprised, the cleric demands to know what Kyumi is yapping about. Amidst the chaos, Facade stands up and joins the cleric. Kyumi tries to reason with the cleric, explaining who she is and how she met Gyro. The cleric questions why Kyumi is explaining the plot to her when she's not an anime recap channel. Kyumi reveals that she wants to remind the viewers what the plot is all about. The cleric admits to killing many full-time yappers like Kyumi in the past, but Kyumi argues that killing is wrong and so is dying. Enraged, the cleric tells her to talk to the hand with a hollow purple at Kyumi, but Gyro swiftly picks her up and jumps away, narrowly avoiding the attack. Gyro reassures Kyumi that they'll deal with the cleric later, but they need to handle Facade first, to which Kyumi agrees. They merge again, and Facade charges at them, hitting the rock where Gyro was standing before he jumps away. Worried, Gyro questions if this is the same Facade he knew. Kyumi detects the scent of a giant beast from Facade. They clash weapons, with Facade attacking and Gyro blocking his fast strikes. Facade taunts Gyro, urging him not to hold back. The two engage in a fast-paced fight, their movements appearing as flashes of light to the cleric standing on the rock. Curious about Kyumi's endurance, the cleric launches a purple sphere at them, causing Kyumi and Gyro to separate. She intervenes, declaring no more playing around. Kyumi suggests luring the cleric towards the mountain so she can try to reason with her. Gyro hesitates, deeming it too risky, but Kyumi pleads with him, insisting she has found enlightenment and believes she can persuade the cleric to stop. She assures Gyro she won't do anything reckless. Gyro reluctantly agrees, but warns her not to do anything crazy. As a distraction, he strikes his spear into the ground, allowing both of them to detach, and Kyumi heads towards the mountains with the cleric following closely behind, unaware of the plan. Facade questions Gyro about what he can do without his cleric. Gyro confidently responds that he has a trick or two up his sleeve. Facade attacks, but Gyro blocks all his strikes and counters. Suddenly, Facade disappears as Gyro's spear pierces through where he was. Alert, Gyro starts scanning his surroundings and prepares his spear, turning the blade to face his back. This stops Facade's movement as he reappears behind Gyro to attack. Facade asks how Gyro knew, and Gyro replies that he's familiar with his game. Facade is shocked when Zen appears behind him, placing a blade at his back. Zen reveals he had no trouble following Facade's movements. Now Facade is caught between the two of them. Meanwhile, Kumi and the cleric reach the mountain. Kumi begins to talk, telling the cleric that they are both alike and weren't born into the world just to die. Angry, the cleric rejects Kumi's words, calling it ridiculous, and shoots a purple blast at her. Kumi, scared but determined, blocks the attack, surprising the cleric. Despite the cleric increasing the attack's intensity, Kumi easily deflects it. Confused, the cleric asks why Kumi isn't fighting back. Kumi responds that she hasn't come to fight, but to save her. The cleric continues to throw more purple spheres as Kumi approaches her, but none of them harm Kumi. Kumi reassures the cleric, telling her that the outside world is vast, but they can explore it together. The cleric starts to lose control as she begins to glow, but Kumi hugs her tightly, pleading with her to open her heart. As Kumi holds her, the cleric begins to see all that Kumi has experienced in the outside world, including the friends she's made. Overwhelmed, the cleric stops glowing and collapses to the ground, tears streaming down her face as she realizes what the outside world is truly like. Kumi assures her that they can explore it together, and that she doesn't need to worry. Just then, Melon calls out to Kumi, interrupting their conversation. Excited to see him, Kumi runs over to meet him and the others. The cleric reflects to herself, realizing there's an outside world she knows nothing about, a world where she doesn't have to face death. Stretching out her hand towards them, she unexpectedly touches a barrier of water. She sees Kumi and the others smiling at her, but then they start to fade away, leaving her confused. Unable to comprehend her emotions, her vision begins to blur. The cleric comes to the conclusion that she and Kumi are not the same after all, realizing she can't join Kumi's side. Feeling her subconscious urging her, Masami tells her that death is her only salvation, and she starts reciting the death chant. As she begins to glow, Kumi notices and becomes confused. Urging the group to hurry to the ship, Kumi runs towards the cleric, while the others rush back to the ship. Kumi hugs the cleric, pleading with her to stop and asking what happened. She encourages the cleric to calm down and hang in there, but the cleric continues reciting the death chant, much to Kumi's worry and confusion. All she can do is beg for the cleric to come back to her senses. At the last moment before her light explodes, the cleric abruptly stops the chant midway, tears streaming down her face. Kumi holds onto her tightly as the light expands, incinerating everything nearby and creating a powerful wind that pushes the ship. Facade observes this and jumps towards the light, declaring that everything is in place. Meanwhile, Gyro is worried about Kumi's safety. As Kumi holds on, she notices the ring on the cleric's finger split open, and the sphere created by the cleric's light is surrounded by a ring. The ring expands to form a cage around the sphere. Gyro arrives at the scene and is confused by what he sees. The cage compresses the sphere of light, causing it to disappear. The destruction caused by the sphere of light is immense, turning everything it engulfed into ashes. Rushing to the scene, Gyro is alarmed by the devastation. Meanwhile, Kumi continues to hold on to the cleric, who hasn't died yet. Looking up, the cleric remarks that death isn't such a big deal. She acknowledges that she can't be the same as Kumi, as every person in the world is different. Suddenly, a light shines from the sky, and the cleric expresses that the outside world is quite beautiful, encouraging Kumi to keep living. She then reaches out her hand towards a figure resembling Toka, indicating that she has passed away. Kumi cries as she holds the cleric, feeling unable to save her. Despite her efforts, she couldn't prevent the cleric's death. Kumi got really tired and fainted, so she was taken back to the ship. Romana's taking care of her now. When Kumi wakes up, Romana's glad she's doing fine. Kumi sits up and Romana gives her some medicine to drink. Kumi takes a sip, but stops because it tastes bitter. Romana laughs and says it's a good thing because if it tasted good, something would be wrong. Kumi asks where Gyro is, and Romana points to him sleeping on the floor. Romana says he's been looking after Kumi without sleep, so they switched. Kumi finally gets better, and the group leave the mountain, with Maya driving the ship to their next stop. The next morning, Kumi stands on the ship, thinking about going back to the scary lab she ran away from. But now she's brave and not scared anymore. Maya asks what she's doing, and Kumi sees everyone gathered. She asks what's up, and Romana nudges Gyro, who gets shy. Romana says they have a surprise gift for Kumi, something they all thought of together. Then, Romana pushes Gyro towards Kumi. Gyro starts by saying Kumi's taking a stand not because she's selfish, but because she wants to help others. He believes it's a sign she's grown into an adult. Kumi eagerly listens as Gyro clears his throat and calls her by her full name, Kumi the 22nd. He tells her that watching her grow and seeing her strive has given them all hope. He believes she can spread that hope to everyone in the laboratory too. That's why they think she's ready for a new nickname, which he hopes she can use with her new friends. From now on, she'll be known as Kumi the Blooming Flower. This surprises Kumi, and she bows, thanking Gyro and the others with a big smile on her face. Later, Kumi lies in bed, staring at the ceiling. Melon, Gyro, and Romana are also in the room. Melon asks if she can tell them about the laboratory she ran away from. Romana scolds him, saying he shouldn't ask her that. But Gyro stands up from his bed, saying it's better for everyone to know the details, and he asks Kumi for permission. After thinking about it, Kumi agrees. Kumi starts by explaining that there were many other girls who looked just like her and were the same height as her in the laboratory. She says that when she woke up, she found herself inside a strange water pod. After she was let out, they told her to kill. They made them fight each other, and she was forced to take lots of drugs every day. Romana adds that this might explain the chemical smell she gets from Kumi. Melon asks why they did all of that, and Gyro responds that it was for weaponizing clerics. He explains that it was a rumor when he was in the Empire, but the clerics were brainwashed to worship death, turning them into human weapons that didn't need soldiers or paladins. They were researching how to make clerics willingly unleash their full power, as the resulting explosion could easily destroy a city. Romana adds that it must be what they witnessed with the other cleric and Kumi. Gyro continues, saying that the idea of death doesn't scare the clerics, much like suicide bombers. Melon says he had no idea the Empire was doing such terrible things. Kumi says that not long after, she was transferred near a port town and managed to escape. She learned that the outside world was full of fun and wonderful things, with delicious food and kind people. Kumi continues, saying she wants to save the other girls she left behind and let them discover the outside world too. But she feels guilty because she couldn't save the cleric they encountered. She wonders if things would have been different if she hadn't run away in the first place. Gyro reassures her, saying she did the right thing by finding a way to escape on her own, and she's still alive because of it, which is what matters most. He tells her no one can blame her because things would have changed if she had stayed. Kumi gets up from the bed and asks if it's really okay that she ran away. Gyro assures her that it is. Melon adds that anyone who would turn young girls into weapons of war are absolute monsters, a sentiment Romana agrees with. Gyro tells Kumi that it's time to stop running away and that they're going back to break Kumi's friends out of the lab. Kumi is overjoyed to hear this. The group arrives at the laboratory, which takes up a huge area of land. Kumi mentions that most of the facilities are underground. Gyro explains that there won't be enough time for Kumi to convince each prototype one by one, so they'll knock them out cold and focus on undoing the brainwashing after they escape the lab. Romana suggests using her herbs to put them to sleep to avoid triggering them. Melon is doubtful and asks if anyone has a better idea, but nobody does. Maya asks Gyro about the plan for the soldiers standing guard. Gyro says they won't pose much of a threat. They'll take care of them quickly and then carry the girls out. Kumi is super excited and says they have nothing to worry about because she believes their plan is going to work. Gyro and Kumi merge and advance towards the laboratory. One of the soldiers spots them and reports to the commander, and the alarm is sounded. All the soldiers step out to confront Gyro. Gyro first asks if there's a need to fight and tells them he's a paladin, so it doesn't matter if they outnumber him because he can send them all flying with one attack. The commander refuses to back down and orders the men to open fire. The soldiers shoot, but they completely miss Gyro. Gyro moves with great speed and easily takes out all the guards, leaving only the commander and one other soldier, who immediately surrender upon seeing his power. They move out of the way as Gyro walks in. The soldier asks if they should give chase, but the commander says they've already done enough work to earn their paychecks, so they make a run for it. Inside the fortress, Gyro faces off against Facade, who's been waiting for him. They clash weapons, creating sparks of electricity around them. Both try to overpower the other. Facade says Gyro's power is despicable, and Gyro responds by saying he knows, because paladins can't even fight without sapping the life from the clerics. He adds that being a paladin is the worst way to live, and that's what Facade also said in the past. But those words weren't enough to make Facade give up. Gyro adds that Facade even tried to change the course of the war so that clerics wouldn't fall victim to the conflict. Facade asks what Gyro is even talking about. Gyro pushes against Facade, telling him to remember his past, then sends him flying with his spear. Facade manages to stop himself from flying too far and declares that he's gained real power, strong enough to fight without relying on any clerics. He starts moving so fast that it looks like there are many of him. Then he attacks from Gyro's left, but Kumi tells Gyro where he'll actually attack from. Gyro spins his spear and turns to his right, placing it against Facade's chest, who is shocked that Gyro stopped him. Facade realizes that this is Kumi's doing. Gyro says that paladins basically have two sets of eyes, quoting Facade. He pierces through the crystals in Facade's chest, exposing his weakness. Facade sees a memory of a girl standing by a window, but is confused about what he's seeing. Suddenly, he gasps and starts stumbling back, walking away. Gyro calls out to him, but he tells him to stay back. Kumi detaches from Gyro, while the rest of the group joins them. With Facade defeated by guilt, the group advances to the next room. They stand in front of a door, and Gyro asks if this is the right way. Kumi affirms it, saying the others are just past the door. Gyro blasts the doors open, and they walk in to see pods filled with water. He asks if the girls are in them, and Kumi says they should be, but when Gyro looks into the pod, they're empty. Then they see one of the clerics who is reciting the death chant and already glowing. She yells at Kumi, calling her a failed product and saying she should die, but Gyro quickly knocks the girl out before she can explode. He calls to Romana to begin. Romana, Melon, and Maya drive in a cart that they will use to transport the girls. Melon is scared as they might either succeed or fail the mission. Romana says they should hurry before the girl wakes up. Romana ties her herb on the girl's neck, saying it will make her stay asleep for a bit. The group continues advancing and sees the place is filled with ruins. Gyro says this might be the old ruin Zen was talking about. Kumi says it's possible, and she had never come this far inside. Romana is suspicious of the writing on the walls. They enter through a door, and behind it are multiple clerics who start chanting failed product, and they all begin glowing. Gyro asks if this was all of them, which Kumi affirms. He expresses that they can't take them all down at once. Kumi yells at the girls to stop, and Romana quickly shields her while Gyro shields them, waiting for the explosion. But then, there's a sudden system sound reversing the brainwashing sequence on the girls. Streams of light begin to ascend in a column. The girls all stop, and their blue light starts glitching, then disappears. Gyro sees this and is confused. All the girls stop glowing and become unconscious. Romana stops shielding Kumi and goes to check on one of the girls. Kumi is worried they might be dead, but Romana reassures her that the girls just fainted. Maya comes in, exclaiming that it will be a huge pain to carry all of them out of there. Gyro asks about the ruins, and Maya says she doesn't know, and that's a question for the Securians. Gyro tells Kumi they are leaving to find Mizami and tells Romana to handle things with the girls, which she affirms. Melon returns with the cart after taking the first one they encountered to the ship. Gyro and Kumi wander around the ruin, searching for Mizami, but they reach a dead end. However, when Gyro places his hands on the wall, it changes from red to white and opens up, revealing a large room. In this room, Mizami is standing in front of a humanoid giant beast encased behind glass. Kumi asks what that thing is, and Gyro, recognizing it, tells her it's a humanoid giant beast. Mizami turns to them, one of his eyes red. He acknowledges that since he saw Gyro at the port, he was right about him being a paladin. Gyro tells Mizami to surrender, as there's no one left to help him. Mizami states that he didn't expect Gyro to defeat Facade and get past all the prototypes, but they were already outlasting their usefulness anyway. He boldly declares that he's all that's needed, along with the perfect weapon standing next to Gyro, referring to Kumi, whom he calls number 22. He says Kumi harbors a strong spirit, which has given her complete control of her powers, making her worthy of becoming his partner in ruling over the inferior species. He approaches them as he explains that he found the truth hidden inside the ruins, and is willing to share it with them since they made it this far. The history of the inferior species, and the giant beasts that plow the land, and the gods who created them. Suddenly, Mizami's second eye turns red. Mizami explains that all the inferior species living on ours are just tools. Long ago, humans were considered closest to the gods, and the other species were made to serve them. But over time, people forgot this, and now the inferior species think they're equal to humans. He claims that he's the only one who remembers the truth and has uncovered the real history of the world. Masami believes it's time for the inferior species to face judgment based on this true history. Gyro comments that this is why Masami wanted war. Masami says that war is the answer, and once it starts, Kumi will be the holy flame that purges the inferior species from the lands. Gyro tells him to stop, but Masami just laughs, saying Gyro must think he's just some powerless scientist. Masami then transforms, shedding his clothes and turning into a huge humanoid. Gyro and Kumi merge to fight against him. The place starts shaking and crumbling. Luckily, Romana, Maya, and Melon were already transporting the last cleric. Maya says they can leave because she's sure Gyro and Kumi can handle the rest. Romana trusts her words, and they leave the area. Meanwhile, Gyro is getting beaten badly, landing hard on the ground. Masami states that he's in control of the true power that can defeat every last one of the inferior species. He picks Gyro up by the head, asking if that's all he's got. Gyro tries to fight back, but Masami catches his spear, saying it's just an old weapon that won't work on him. He then grabs Gyro and pulls out Kumi from within him, using her as a shield before throwing Gyro into the wall. He turns to Kumi, telling her to stop fighting and just follow him. He promises to spare Gyro's life if she obeys him. Gyro tries to tell her not to do it, but he's too weak. Masami approaches her, calling her number 22, but she defiantly declares her name as Kumi the Blooming Flower and refuses to go with him. Masami laughs at her name, calling it stupid and saying it's what he'd expect from someone like her. Kumi becomes angry, telling Masami that her name is special and filled with the kind sentiments of her friends, and he shouldn't dare make fun of them. Her eyes then turn green, awakening the humanoid giant beast. It stretches its hands towards Masami, and Kumi tells him he will pay for what he's done. Gyro is shocked to see this. Masami tries to run away, but the humanoid giant beast grabs him and throws him into its mouth. Then it is sucked into the ground. Kumi then faints, and Gyro rushes towards her as the place starts to collapse. He carries her and makes a run for it. The whole place collapses on itself. Gyro carries Kumi outside and rests her against a rock. Romana asks if she's all right, and he affirms it. Maya draws their attention to something approaching them, 2 ships. The ships stop in front of them, and a lady steps out of one with a girl with horns following behind. Gyro calls the lady Tsurugi, shocked to see her, and asks if she really is the one. She approaches him, saying it's been a long time. Gyro notices some men behind her and asks who they are. The leader introduces himself as Cryonis, the Great Heaven Reacher, and says he serves as the chieftain of the Securians. Gyro declares that Masami is dead, leaving the rest to them to handle. Tsurugi approaches Kumi, asking Gyro if she's his current cleric. She notices the ring on Kumi's hand and assumes that must be it. Tsurugi explains that the technology used to produce the prototypes could spark a war, so they need to root it out and cover it up. Cryonis adds that messengers have already been dispatched to each of the villages to prevent any conflicts. Gyro asks if there's any punishment for them. Tsurugi says it would be safer to get rid of Gyro, but they have another plan in mind for him. Cryonis mentions a technique passed down by the Securians that can fully inhibit the powers of a cleric. They plan to perform this suppressing ritual on Kumi in their village, and then repeat the process to cure the other girls. Tsurugi adds that after that, Gyro will have to give up his current name and start living under an entirely new identity. Gyro doesn't like the idea, evident in his face. Tsurugi acknowledges that it won't be easy, but they will all be officially reported as dead. Melon asks if this means their journey will come to an end once they reach the Securian village. Cryonis says it's not certain that things will go so smoothly. He mentions the moment of judgment, and Romana asks what it means. Cryonis explains that when the world of ours reaches its peak of maturity, legends say the gods shall arrive and then steal everything. Gyro recalls Masami talking about something similar. Cryonis explains that the red-eyed beast they encountered is an indicator of this. They serve as vanguards, preparing for the gods' arrival by devouring all the people and destroying the world as they know it. He adds that the Securians have made it their duty to prepare for the moment of judgment. Tsurugi says that's everything, and Gyro should consider himself enlisted until everything is over. Gyro agrees, unsure how much help he could offer, but willing to join in. Suddenly, he yells out to Kumi, who has blood spilling from her mouth and falls to the ground, alarming the others. It was already nightfall when they loaded all the prototypes into the ship. Kumi is being looked after by Gyro and Romana after being treated by Cryonis. Romana tells Cryonis that his medicine is working, and Cryonis replies that they brought some standard remedies with them from the village. Romana praises the medicine, saying it's really effective. Cryonis acts humble, saying the medicine isn't that remarkable. Gyro listens to them and notices Tsurugi eavesdropping by the door. When she realizes she's been spotted, she walks away like nothing happened. He follows her and asks what's the matter. Tsurugi says Kyumi is reaching her lifespan. Gyro argues, saying she's just a kid, and he knows the powers can take a physical toll on clerics, but he never thought it was so bad. Tsurugi agrees, but explains that Kyumi is no ordinary cleric. She's a weaponized cleric made by Mizami. She says overwhelming power that goes beyond human limits was forcibly infused into Kyumi's body, and the cost is a shorter lifespan. She adds that the prototypes were created to be a weapon, so there was no point in making them last long. Gyro is angry after hearing this and grabs Tsurugi's collar, but she just smirks at him. He asks her what's so funny, and she says she was worried when she heard he was going by the name Already Dead, but it seems he has gone back to being the old Thunderbolt. He tells Tsurugi to stop and not change the subject. He asks her what they can do for Kyumi. Tsurugi says Kyumi's condition should stabilize after the Securians perform the ritual to suppress her powers, but it doesn't change the fact that her lifespan is coming to an end. Gyro asks how long Kyumi has. Tsurugi says about 6 months to a year maximum, and it could even be less. Gyro can't believe Kyumi doesn't have long to live. He argues that she's just a kid and hasn't learned how to have fun outside of eating good food. She's so kind that she wanted to save the other specimens and stop the war, and after putting herself in harm's way to get it done, it's not fair that she's rewarded like this. There's silence in the night, and Gyro is pained. He asks Tsurugi what he's supposed to tell Kyumi. Gyro trains with his spear, hitting a tree so hard it breaks and falls. He notices Kyumi sitting nearby, watching him with admiration. He apologizes for the noise and asks if he was too loud. Kyumi stands up and shakes her head, thanking him for all he's done for her. Gyro wonders why she's suddenly so grateful. She explains that he went on this journey for her sake. Gyro brushes it off, saying it's nothing, and mentions that she freed him from a curse, so he should be thanking her. Kyumi asks what he plans to do once everything is over. Gyro says they prevented a big war, so he'll ask for a reward from Tsurugi, and then they can relax for a while. He also mentions he'll pay back his debt to Romana. Kyumi squats down, looking at him intently, and asks if he's hiding something. Gyro denies it, standing up to continue training. She suggests her illness might be worse than he thinks, but Gyro tells her not to be silly and advises her to rest and stay warm. Kyumi reveals that Melon already spilled the beans, leaving Gyro both shocked and annoyed at how Melon found out. However, it turns out Kyumi tricked him into admitting it. She then asks Gyro to explain everything to her in detail. They sit down on a log, and Gyro spills the whole story. Kyumi simply responds with a calm, "I see." Gyro wonders if that's all she has to say, but Kyumi explains that she already had a feeling about what happened. Despite it all, she feels lucky. She reflects on how she was supposed to die alone in a lab, but instead, she got to enjoy delicious food, meet new people, make friends, and it's all thanks to Gyro. Gyro is taken aback by her gratitude. He tells her not to worry about him and just enjoy being a kid, doing whatever makes her happy without feeling pressured to share it with anyone. But Kyumi interjects, saying she's not a kid anymore. She rests her head on his arm and expresses her genuine happiness. Gyro smiles and rubs her head, which brings a smile to her face too. As they arrive at the Securian village, Melon marvels at its immense size. He wonders if the village often deals with giant beasts because of its size. Romana speculates that the villagers probably aren't afraid of such creatures due to their access to ancient technology. Cryonis approaches them, welcoming them to the village. He mentions that the last time they had visitors from another tribe was about 200 years ago. Leading them upstairs and downstairs, they observe the Securians going about their daily lives. Kyumi smiles at the scene and even pauses to wave at some adults and children, but they don't wave back and simply walk away instead. Cryonis explains that they aren't used to outsiders. Melon jokes that it's because Gyro has a scary face, but Gyro defends himself, saying his face isn't scary. Maya jokes that it's freaky, and Romana adds that it means the village is exceptionally peaceful. Cryonis confirms this, stating that no giant beasts have come near the area. Cryonis leads the group to their room, where Melon jumps onto a sofa, commenting on how fluffy it is. The next day, Kyumi wakes up and leaves her room, greeting Romana and Melon at the dining table. Romana asks if she slept well, to which Kyumi affirms. Melon points out that it's not morning anymore, surprising Kyumi, who realizes it's already evening when she looks outside. Romana informs her that they need to go because Cryonis wants to talk to her about the ritual. Romana asks Melon about Gyro's whereabouts, and he mentions that Gyro left earlier to talk with Tsurugi. Romana adds that she hasn't seen Maya either and asks Melon to go look for her. In another room that resembles a control tower, Romana and Kumi explore in awe when Cryonis appears, asking if they're enjoying their stay and if Kumi slept well. Kumi replies that she slept peacefully. Suddenly, a world map appears in the air, and Cryonis explains that the red dots represent places where red-eyed beasts have appeared. He mentions territories where the beasts have been spotted, including the northern continent. Romana comments on the severity of the situation. Cryonis suggests that before the ritual begins, it's best for them to know everything up front. The floor of the room starts to lower into an underground area, startling the girls. Cryonis announces that he will now share the secrets of the Securians with them. The platform flies them across the underground to their destination. Curious, Kumi asks why she's receiving special treatment. Cryonis seems puzzled and asks what she means by special treatment. She wonders aloud why. With red-eyed beasts popping up all over the globe, she shouldn't be out there helping to fight them off. Cryonis explains that sending a child into battle is considered too harsh by the Securians. He adds that because his people have longer lifespans, they tend to have fewer children, leading them to become overprotective parents. Kumi blushes in admiration at his response. They arrive in front of a huge door that opens to allow the platform through, closing almost immediately after. The platform takes them to the end of a long hall where a sphere is located in the middle. Along the way, they notice walls filled with pods, which Kumi recognizes. When they reach the end of the wall, Kumi and Romana are staring at the capsules when Cryonis explains that some people from the Empire took some of the pods for themselves, but originally, the pods belonged to the Securians. He adds that his people used to live across the world. Romana asks if it means they were also creating experimental clones, but Cryonis clarifies that this is actually how they propagate, shocking the ladies. He continues explaining that Securians being born naturally only happens once or twice in a century, which obviously isn't enough for the Securians to survive long term. Therefore, they mainly reproduce by relying on these pod devices. Kumi asks if he was also born through the pod, which Cryonis confirms. He says reproduction is the true power of the pods, despite how Mazami abused it for his own ends. With that being the case, the Securians see Kumi as one of their own, like their children or grandchildren. Kumi is touched by this, and Cryonis apologizes if it dredged up painful memories for her, but she says it actually makes her happy because she thought she didn't have a family to call her own, and this feels like a dream come true. Meanwhile, Tsurugi gives Gyro a small ball to attach to his ear. Gyro asks what it is, and she says it's a machine crafted by the Securians that will allow them to communicate even if they are in different locations. Gyro asks if it's part of the movement judgment thing, but Tsurugi says they don't know when it will come, so it's best to be prepared. Everyone gathers in the hall for the ritual. Romana tells Gyro, who looks uneasy, to calm down. Maya joins them at the front where they stand. They all face Cryonis, who signals them to look at the door. They all turn, and an orchestra starts playing as the door opens, revealing Kumi on a moving platform. But she's dressed in a long white gown and a veil. Gyro and the others are surprised. Kumi sees them and smiles, Melon waves back, Maya and Romana smile, but Gyro turns his face away. She reaches the altar and kneels in front of Cryonis, who announces her name to everyone. He explains that she was born through Securian technology, but cursed with suffering. Therefore, Cryonis declares that he will free Kumi from her curse and bless her as a fellow Securian. He asks if anyone opposes this, but all the Securians present bow their heads. Gyro and the group do the same after seeing them. Cryonis announces that no objections were made, so from this moment, the Securians officially welcome Kumi as one of their own. He then blesses her and begins the ritual blessings. The letters on the sphere at the altar begin to glow and float above the ground. Kumi asks if the sphere is part of the ritual. Cryonis confirms it and tells her to place her hands on the sphere. He warns her that once she touches it, she must not let go, because if any of the power inside her remains, they cannot repeat the process to remove it. Kumi agrees, saying she's not worried. She approaches the sphere and places one hand on it. She starts feeling pain in her body. Cryonis asks if she's okay. She says she can handle it and proceeds to place her second hand on the sphere. Everyone watches the ritual, but suddenly there's a huge stampede of giant beasts. People start running for their lives. The commotion shakes the hall where the group is, but Kumi still focuses on keeping her hands on the sphere. Gyro receives the news from Tsurugi through his earpiece. Melon is worried as Maya has disappeared once again. Gyro rushes out, telling them to keep an eye on Kumi. Gyro fights with the red-eyed beast, but he's no match for it. The beast bites his spear and throws him into a pillar. Suddenly, Gyro hears Kumi calling to him. He turns to see her running towards him dressed in her normal clothing. As she reaches him, he asks why she's there. The giant beast is slowed down as it is hit by bullets from a Securian soldier. The soldier tells them to hurry and run for it. Gyro carries Kumi and runs, while the soldier faces the giant beast as it tries to bite them. Far from the area, and in a safe corner, Gyro asks Kumi why she's there and about the ritual. She tells him that she made them stop it, which surprises him. She says it's so she can still use her power. Gyro is furious, saying it means they came all the way to the village for nothing. He stands, turns away from her, and punches the nearby wall. Kumi stands and says she's going to fight, wanting to fight so they can all travel again. Gyro replies that a kid like her has no say in the matter. This makes Kumi angry. She goes and stands in front of him, saying that Gyro is just as childish as she is. She points out how he's always saying he's already dead and bossing her around with "don't worry" and "shut up." And despite talking tough, all she sees is him getting his butt kicked. Gyro is surprised by Kumi's outburst, but retaliates by asking when has he ever gotten his butt kicked. She fights back, saying they both know he can't do anything without her around. He wants to reply, but has no comeback. They both glare at each other, then Kumi calms down and says she wants to stay with him and the whole group until the day she dies. She asks if that's really so wrong of her and begs him. Gyro looks at her pleading eyes, but the conversation is interrupted by a giant beast bursting through the ceiling. It's about to swallow them up. But to their surprise, the beast's neck is chopped off almost instantly. Facade arrives, yelling out Nazami's name, saying he stole everything from him, so he's going to do the same thing to him. He launches at Gyro, but Gyro quickly averts him, carrying Kumi with him. Gyro doesn't know what to do, but Kumi stands and steps in front of him. She turns to him and tells them they should begin. Gyro is shocked as she tells him that a paladin's job is to protect their cleric after all. Gyro smiles and goes to stand beside her, stretching out his hands to her. He calls her the biggest dummy, and she takes his hand, replying back that he's the bigger dummy. They activate their transformation and merge together. Gyro and Facade's clash doesn't happen underground as they both take the fight to the surface. They begin clashing weapons at great speed. They land on the ground ready to go again, but Tsurugi communicates with Gyro through the earpiece that there's a mega-sized beast spawning other beasts just ahead of his position, and he should go take it out. Gyro replies that he has got his hands full at the moment. Facade spares no time and begins his speed movement. Knowing him well, Gyro uses the end of the spear to hit the fake that appears at his back, then uses the spear blade to pierce the one that appears at his front. But it doesn't catch Facade as he disappears and continues the speed movement. Gyro realizes that the same trick won't work on Facade anymore. He becomes alert, scanning for the next place Facade will attack from when suddenly a giant beast bursts out from the ground. Facade turns his attention to the beast, yelling at it not to interrupt their fight. He stabs the beast in the eye, causing it to roar out. But the beast doesn't go down, instead, it throws Facade into a rock. Gyro jumps and stabs the beast in the eye. A huge spear of light appears and pierces through the beast, killing it. Facade, seeing this, mentions seeing something like this before, saying that power comes from one of the prototypes, so Gyro must be one of Nazami's underlings. He launches at Gyro, yelling at him to give him back his memories. He attacks Gyro, hitting him so fast that Gyro couldn't defend, and he's sent flying into a rock. The impact causes Kumi to detach from Gyro. Facade approaches them, yelling that he wants his memories back. He lifts his weapon to stab them, but Zen blocks his attack, saving Gyro. Facade yells at the old man to not intervene. Zen tells Facade that if he wants his memories back, he will gladly give them to him. A fight ensues between the two, with Facade yelling at Zen to give him back his memories as he lunges at the old man. He goes for a swing which Zen dodges, then goes for another attack which Zen blocks. Zen uses his sword to slice Facade's blades into pieces, shocking Facade, but Zen's blade also receives a crack. Zen concludes that killing Facade is not an option, so he thinks of a plan. Facade attacks him with his other blade, but Zen counters all the attacks. As they clash weapons, Facade is able to break Zen's sword into two, causing the blade to fly into the air. Facade then stabs Zen's back, but Zen wasn't done. He catches the blade that flew into the air and uses it to stab Facade in the chest, breaking the crystal in his chest. Zen calls this his parting gift as he pushes the blade further into Facade's chest and pushes him away, causing him to fall off a cliff. Then Zen collapses because of his injury. Gyro regains his strength and merges with Kumi again, starting to take out the stampede of red-eyed beasts. But he's frustrated as there's no end to the beasts. Suddenly, Kumi calls out to him. Gyro asks if she's okay, and she lies, saying she can keep going. But Gyro realizes that Kumi might run out of steam before they even reach the main giant beast, which is a blue humanoid with no arms. Gyro looks at the humanoid beast, which is bigger than the ones he's seen. Still, he just has to hit its weak point, which is the eye. Gyro hears Kumi faintly approve and realizes that they have only one shot to end the giant beast. He uses one of the snake giant beasts that launch at him as a ramp to reach the blue humanoid. He then stabs it in the eyes, but he hasn't driven it in yet. Gyro is determined to end it here, so he drives the spear in more. The huge spear of light appears and pierces through the beast, but that's not the end, as more red eyes appear all over the body of the humanoid. Gyro is sent flying by a force and crashes into the ground. Kumi has already detached from him, and Gyro concludes this is the end. But he is shocked to see Kumi emitting her blue light, signaling she's about to self-destruct. She apologizes to him and says she will blow them away, but suddenly she sees memories of people telling her to live on. This causes her to abort the self-destruct sequence. Gyro jumps to shield her as a giant beast tries to eat her, but they are saved as their ship hits the beast in the face, surprising Gyro. Maya was the one flying the ship, and Melon, who was inside with her, yells that she's driving like a lunatic. She tells him to hand over the ring, which telepathically floats to her hand, surprising Melon. She tells him to leave everything to her and suddenly disappears from the seat, scaring Melon as he begins to freak out. Maya appears in front of Gyro and Kumi, which startles him. She says sorry for keeping them waiting, and it's time for the promise to be fulfilled. She snaps her fingers, and all three of them disappear, transporting them to another space. She tells Kumi to wake up, and Kumi is shocked to see Amaya standing in front of her, all grown and taller than her. She points to her head, saying she doesn't have to wear her cat hat anymore. Gyro is shocked, asking if she really is Maya. She yells at him for asking the same question she just answered. Kumi notices that her injuries have all been healed. Maya says there's no time, so she will start explaining everything. She turns to Gyro and says paladin weaponry won't be enough to take down the giant beast, and his fight against Mazami should have made things clear. She says the only way to stop it is to tap into the Ring of Promise's true power, which requires a legitimate master that can wield it. She shows them the rings and makes it appear on Kumi's finger. She says Kumi has proven that she has all the qualities needed to be the ring master. She tells Kumi to focus all her feelings into the ring. Kumi agrees, and then focuses, asking the ring to give her power one more time, the power to subdue the giant beast and to protect the people of Ars. The rings glow and transform the gloomy space into a bright space. Maya says it started and snaps her fingers, causing Gyro to transform into streams of light and enter into Kumi. She begins saying Gyro's activation chants, and she transforms, wearing a silver armor. She returns back to where the giant beasts are. Kumi lifts her hand, and a huge ring appears, which she holds. As the giant beasts launch at her, she points the ring at them. In an instant, rays of light pierce through the beasts, annihilating them at once. She does the same thing to the other giant beasts, but there are still more. She holds the ring with both hands at her center, releasing multiple rays of light that wipe out all the giant beasts in the area. While the blue humanoid giant beast had shielded itself during the wipeout attack, now it's Kumi against the humanoid giant beast. It launches multiple arms at her, but she is shielded against them, and the arms just bounce against her barrier and hit the ground, then they disappear. The humanoid giant beast fires many shots at Kumi from all its red eyes. They hit her barrier, but Kumi still has to try her best to keep the barrier from breaking. Kaya, who is watching, says she knows the burden that was hefted upon Kumi is immeasurably taxing, but she begs and wishes that Kumi doesn't lose and fights to protect Ars. Kumi is able to deflect the attack, which causes a bright light to shine. She raises the ring into the sky, and just like her name, she becomes the flower that blooms. The ring appears around the humanoid giant beast, then compresses it into a tiny ball. The tiny ball then explodes into a giant explosion as it eradicates the beast. With the humanoid giant beast gone, the other red-eyed giant beasts attacking the people, their red eyes stop glowing, and they all collapse, confusing the people, making them wonder who defeated all the beasts. Regardless, they all breathe a sigh of relief. The sky clears as the beasts have been defeated. Kumi flies down and Gyro detaches from her, stumbling and falling to the ground. He says he has no idea what happened, but he's exhausted and would like to lay on the ground for a while. Melon rushes to where she is, asking if she's okay, which she affirms. He panics as he sees Gyro and asks if he's okay. Gyro tells him to shut up, that he's fine. He turns to Maya, but he didn't know it's her. He blushes as he introduces himself. She tells him that he's still hasty as ever. Melon is shocked and screams, reporting to Gyro, saying Maya has suddenly turned into a hot lady. Gyro and Melon start arguing, Gyro telling him to shut up, but Melon is still freaking out at Maya's transformation. Kumi walks towards Maya, who tells her that the toughest part is yet to come. Kumi agrees as she's ready for it. The people around the globe celebrate that they are still alive. Zen is still alive. Romana treated all the injured. Everything is peaceful once more.